My name is Dalia Tran. I'm 29, a medical resident, and last month, my parents kicked me out of their house. No warning, no yelling, just a cold dinner table, no food, no welcome, and 3 pairs of eyes already decided. I thought we were meeting to talk about the community clinic I was building. Instead, my cousin Kayla handed me a duffel bag like it was a favor, and my mom looked me straight in the eye and said, "We don't recognize who you've become." But here's the thing. They didn't know what I was building. Have you ever been thrown out of a place that once called you family? Tell me below. Because I didn't yell. I didn't fight. I just walked out. And I built something they couldn't take credit for, even if they begged. That Friday, I left the hospital early after a 12-hour shift. My shoulders were aching, my legs felt like bricks, but I still stopped by that bakery on 5th Street, the one my mom loves. I picked up a small tiramisu, figuring maybe, just maybe, we'd share a slice and talk about the clinic I was opening. My dad had called earlier that week. "Dinner Friday, be here at 6. Nothing more, no tone of urgency. I thought maybe he wanted to ask about my work. Maybe he was proud? I walked through the front door at 6:03. The living room lights were already on, but something felt off. No smells from the kitchen, no mom humming while she cooked, just 3 people sitting in the living room like they'd been rehearsing. My father, Mr. Tran, stone-faced as ever. My mother, Lynn, hands folded tightly, eyes glued to the floor. And Kayla, my cousin, arms crossed, smirking like she'd won something. "You're late," Dad said, not even looking up. "Traffic," I offered, half laughing. "Sorry." I placed the dessert box on the table. No one moved. "Is everything okay?" I asked. Kayla answered. Of course she did. She slid a paper across the table, a printed bank statement, red circles highlighting a few withdrawals. "You didn't think we'd find out, did you?" she said. "You've been stealing from Grandma's trust." I blinked. "What?" "Grandma left that money for the whole family," Kayla added. "Not for you to grab and run, and hiding the will, that's low, even for you." I looked at my mom, waiting for her to say something, anything, but she just said, softly, "We don't recognize who you've become." My stomach dropped. "Mom, I never touched her account. I would never—" "Enough," my dad cut in. "We've had this conversation without you. The decision is made." He stood up. "You're no longer part of this household." I froze. "Wait, you're serious?" No one replied. "Kayla packed a bag for you," my mom said. "It's by the door." I walked out of the house I once called home, past the kitchen where Grandma used to peel fruit for me, past the hallway where my name was on every school photo frame, and by the door was the bag, already zipped up, like they'd been waiting for this moment far longer than I realized. I didn't go to a friend's place. I didn't call anyone. I just drove. No music, no destination, just the sound of my own breathing, tight and uneven. Around 9 p.m., I pulled into the hospital parking lot, not because I had a shift, but because it was the only place I still felt like I existed. I sat there in my car for nearly an hour, staring out at the lit windows, wondering how many other people had been kicked out of somewhere they thought was home. Have you ever felt that? Like your entire identity got voted off the island without your consent? Eventually, I grabbed my locker key and walked inside. The night nurse gave me a look but didn't ask questions. I nodded and smiled like everything was fine. It wasn't. In the staff lounge, I sat down, pulled out the one thing I hadn't shown anyone in years, a sealed envelope with a deep blue wax stamp. Grandma's will. I'd kept it in the back of my drawer, tucked under a stack of old anatomy flashcards, because even though she told me about it before she passed, I wasn't ready to open that part of my life. Not until now. I broke the seal with a pen cap. Inside, a single sheet of cream paper, handwritten. To Dalia Min, for the one who stayed when no one else did. For the one who sees pain and does not run. Everything I have is yours. Beach tum. That was it. No legalese, no list of assets, just that. I stared at the words so long the ink almost blurred. This wasn't just a transfer of money. This was acknowledgement. Quiet, unglamorous validation from the only person who'd ever looked at me and said, "You're not too much, you're just right." And she gave it to me in secret. Because she knew. She knew how this family worked. She knew they wouldn't have accepted her decision, so she left it hidden, like a lifeline waiting for the storm to hit. You ever find out something beautiful after something ugly and wish you could show it to the people who hurt you, just so they'd know what they threw away? I won't lie. For a second, I almost drove back. Held the letter up in my dad's face. Asked him if this handwriting looked familiar, but I didn't. Instead, I sat alone in that gray, flickering break room, and I made a decision. I would build the clinic. Not in my name, not for them to clap for, but in her name, Beach Tum, because she was the only one who never asked me to be smaller. And that night, for the first time in weeks, I slept without hearing my mother's voice in my head. I only heard Grandma's. Everything I have is yours. 2 days after I read Grandma's letter, I changed my name. Not legally, not yet, but I started writing it everywhere. In my planner, on clinic notes, in the sender line of every new email. Dalia Min. Min was my grandmother's middle name. No one in the family ever used it. Too old-fashioned, too soft, too much of the past they tried to bury. But to me, it sounded like home, like wisdom spoken without shouting. That week I registered a new nonprofit, Tom Thuck Foundation, a phrase Grandma once used when I was little and cried over a squirrel with a broken leg. "What hurts isn't weakness," she'd said, wiping my tears. "It's the sign you still have Tom Thuck, a consciousness that doesn't look away." I still remembered that. I'd forgotten a lot, but not that. The clinic I was building had no front-facing name yet. But I made a promise. My name wouldn't be on the sign. Not because I was hiding, but because I was choosing to step back from the need to be seen. Some people crave applause. I'd settle for impact. When the architect asked whose name should go on the donor wall, I said, "Just right, in memory of Beach Tum, who gave without asking to be remembered." He paused. "That's it? That's enough." I rented a small storage unit behind a closed-down print shop on the outskirts of town. That's where I kept all the supplies. Blood pressure cuffs, boxes of prenatal vitamins, a dented exam table I got at auction. Every Friday night, I went there with takeout and a clipboard. No one knew what I was doing. Not my colleagues, not even the few friends I still had. I wasn't ready to explain, because how do you explain that you're building a future from scraps of grief? How do you say, "I was erased, so I started over," with no name, no applause, just bricks and purpose? I didn't go to therapy. I couldn't afford it. But every time I painted a wall or folded a patient gown, it felt like healing. Quiet, imperfect healing. Sometimes I imagined Kayla scrolling through social media, proud of whatever curated moment she was living. My mother trimming the roses out front, pretending her house wasn't echoing with someone's absence. And me, I was building something real, not to prove them wrong, but because someone had to prove me right. If you're watching this and you've ever walked away from a place that said you didn't belong, just know you can still build something that feels like home. You don't need their permission, you just need to start. It started with a voicemail. I was in the middle of sorting supply invoices for the clinic when I saw the missed call. Blocked number, voicemail left. I let it sit. For hours. By the time I pressed play, I was standing in the stairwell outside the break room, half hoping it was a wrong number. But it wasn't. "Dalia, if you're still... we're at the new clinic in Quail Valley. Your father's been having these... tremors. The hospital said there's a wait list. They told us to come here. They said the doctor on call tonight is someone named DM. She didn't say my full name. Maybe she couldn't. Or maybe she knew. I didn't respond. I just walked back inside, picked up the patient chart on top of the stack, and kept working. That night they came. I didn't see them at first. One of the nurses called me over. New walk-ins, possible neurological signs, blood pressures high. I reviewed the vitals, ran the tests, spoke to the man on the bed, Mr. Tran, charted under no known medical history. I didn't say, "You're my father." He didn't say, "I remember your voice." We went through the motions like strangers. Professional, efficient, cold. Mom didn't come in. She waited outside the exam room, arms tight across her chest, staring at the floor tiles. When it was over, I walked back to the front desk and signed the discharge form with a quick scribble. Dr. D. Min. I handed it to the nurse, who slid it into a manila envelope and passed it to the woman by the door. Mom opened it halfway. skimmed the bottom line, and paused. Her lips parted slightly. She looked up like she was about to ask something, but I was already gone. That weekend, she came back, alone, asked to speak with the head physician. I was in the admin office when the front desk buzzed in, patient asking for whoever runs the clinic. I didn't move. The receptionist responded, just like I'd trained them. We don't disclose staff identities. This clinic was founded in memory of Beach Tum by someone who prefers not to be named. Mom didn't argue. She left quietly, but I saw her from the window, standing there with the envelope in her hand, reading my signature like it belonged to a stranger. And maybe it did, because I wasn't the daughter she raised. I was the woman she threw out, who came back, not to be seen, but to make sure no one else was ever erased the way she tried to erase me. The clinic's grand opening wasn't supposed to be a big deal. We didn't invite press, no camera crews, just local volunteers, a folding table with donated pastries, and a ribbon someone found at the dollar store. But the town showed up anyway. People came with strollers, wheelchairs, stories. One man brought a carved wooden plaque that read, "Thank you for not turning us away." A mother brought her daughter, who'd gotten her first prenatal checkup here 3 months ago, for free. And then someone brought a microphone. "I didn't sign up to speak," said Mrs. Huyn, one of the neighbors from 2 blocks down. She stepped onto the makeshift stage in her Sunday sandals, holding a wrinkled sheet of paper. "But someone asked me to read this." The crowd hushed. I froze where I was, standing in the back beside the juice table, clipboard still in hand. She adjusted her glasses and began. "To Dalia Min, for the one who stayed when no one else did, for the one who sees pain and does not run, everything I have is yours. Beach Tum." It was Grandma's letter, the one from her will. My stomach twisted. I hadn't shown that letter to anyone, not even the staff. But Mrs. Huyn looked up and added gently, "This was found in the pages of a donated book." No one knew whose it was, but someone knew it mattered. Someone knew. From across the crowd I saw her, my mother, standing near the back, arms wrapped around herself like armor. She wasn't wearing makeup. Her hair was pulled back the way it used to be when she was too tired to pretend. And for the first time, I saw her cry. She wasn't sobbing, she wasn't begging, just still. Like something inside her cracked quietly, and she couldn't hide it anymore. She clutched an envelope against her chest, the same one from the clinic visit, the one with my signature. I didn't go to her. I didn't speak. I stayed where I was. Let the silence do the work. Because this wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about making her feel what I had felt. It was about naming the truth out loud and letting it hang in the air long enough for the people who once erased me to finally hear what they refused to read. I didn't go to her, not after the speech, not after the tears, not even after I saw her fold the letter and walk away with it pressed tight to her chest like it hurt. Instead, I went back to the exam room and checked a child's vitals. Then I went home, not the house I grew up in. That door's still closed, but the tiny apartment 2 floors above a faux restaurant, where I keep an aloe plant on the windowsill and a desk stacked with unopened mail. That night, I watered the plant, boiled rice, watched the condensation slide down the kettle lid and thought, this is peace. Not loud, not cinematic, just mine. The next morning, an envelope slipped under the clinic door. No name on the outside, no return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper, handwritten. If I could go back, I would listen. I would ask instead of assume. I would hold your hand tighter, but I know I don't get to choose what you remember. Just know this. I'm sorry, Dalia. No signature, but I knew who it was from. I folded the paper neatly and placed it in the same drawer as Grandma's letter, not to keep the memory alive, but because some pages don't deserve to be torn up. They just deserve to stay closed. 3 months later, we got funding for a second clinic. This time, when the press came, they asked if the founder would speak. The team looked at me. I shook my head. Let the work speak. They smiled. They understood. Now, every time I walk through the waiting room and see a mother filling out forms, a teenager holding his grandfather's elbow, a nurse checking blood pressure, I don't feel erased anymore. I feel written into something that matters. If you're watching this and there's someone who once made you feel like you didn't count, can I tell you something? You don't need their voice to confirm your worth. You don't even need your name on a wall. All you need is to keep showing up, quietly, until one day, without even realizing it, you become the place others come to when they've lost everything. That's who I became, not someone they accepted back, but someone they couldn't erase again.